A very good evening, a warm welcome, and happy Easter for those of you who celebrate Easter or celebrate Easter this weekend, to be specific. And if that sounds slightly strange, there are those of us who celebrate it next weekend, those of us who've married in to a Greek family, because next weekend is Greek Easter, which means this time next week I will still be digesting my body weight in lamb after my Greek mother-in-law Eleni has got hold of me with great glee. But if you have been celebrating, I hope you've had a good weekend, and a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. Thank you for joining us on what is an evening I'm really looking forward to, because I know even less than I usually do about the contents of the show. Normally, it is an exercise in learning as I sit here and from a great winemaker or wine drinker or figure in the wine community, I discover all manner of things about wine I did not know. But today we go beyond just wine and we stray into the world of the NFT, not, as one of the winemakers mentioned last week, an EFT, although you'll need a fairly substantial EFT to buy the NFT and the wine around which this evening's show is centered. Coming up, in fact, it's already open for bidding, the Strauss Fine Wine Auction by NFT. 5 of South Africa's top estates who have put together an extraordinary collection of vintages, both past and future, and each one of them is attached to an NFT. What on earth does that mean? I suspect there are many of you who are raising an eyebrow and nodding sagely while internally being completely confused. Well, I am part of your family. I have the experts on the show this evening. We'll be chatting in a moment to Roland Peens, who, when he's not running Ponzi schemes in the Overberg, is overseeing the wine that goes in to the Strauss auctions. And this one is particularly interesting. And Hans Ostrom from Klein Constantia, he's in Switzerland at the moment, will be talking to us about why Klein Constantia have joined up with Meerlust and with Mullineux and with Vilafonte, along with Kanonkop, to be part of the first ever fine wine NFT auction in South Africa. It's a fascinating space. It's one I don't know a huge amount about yet, but in an hour's time, I shall be All right, there we go. Apologies. We have load shedding in my part of town. It's playing havoc with everything. But let's jump into some wine news before today's show. All right, the Pick and Pay Wine and Food Festival that is happening in Cape Town, the Kenilworth Racecourse at the end of the month, the 30th of April and the 1st of May. 200 Rand gets you a ticket, or 260 Rand at Web Tickets gets you the ticket plus the pass into the Pick and Pay studio, which gets you fine wine and food tastings. I'll be hosting a couple of those over the weekend. You get your branded wine glass. I think there are 35 different wine estates from across South Africa. And if you like some wine, bang, buy it, sell it all prices, and it will be delivered to your home. Also, loads of great food, plus live entertainment, some terrific music. They are back, the Pick and Pay Wine Festivals. This is the first of them. I will be there. I hope you will be too. That is the 30th of April, the 1st of May in Cape Town. If you're thinking, well, I don't live in Cape Town, but I want to go too. Well, don't worry. There are going to be plenty more happening all over South Africa over the rest of 2022. Then, well, we speak about Vilafonte today. You can get some more of Vilafonte on Wednesday. The changing face of digital wine marking. Vinimark, the wine company, that's John Lefebvre. Han Drinks Solo has roped in Mike Radcliffe, who's not just Vilafonte, he's Stellenbosch Wine Routes as well. Peter Van Eekirk, the founder of Intelligence, and Polly Hammond from fiveforests.com. And together they talk about digital wine marketing, an appropriate topic in the context of today's show, where we talk about NFTs. And that promises to be a really interesting discussion on it. And then 2 weeks to go. It is the Cheese Festival, but it is a cheese and wine festival. This is going to be out at Grote Post, and there's also one at Sandringham in Stellenbosch. You can get your tickets at Pick and Pay. This is Sunday, the 1st of May. So if you're not at the Pick and Pay Wine Festival, you've gone on the Saturday, then this is one. And you've got, amongst others, Flat Stanley playing, Watershed, Kurt Darren, Me and Mr. Green. They're just a really great collection of musicians. And you can get all of those tickets at the web tickets or directly at Pick and Pay. So look out for that. Sandringham in Stellenbosch, South African Cheese Festival with lots of very, very, very good wine. So there we go. Some dates for your diary at the end of the month. In your diary from today, going online to the Strauss website and having a look at an auction that is asking some very large sums of money for something not all of us entirely understand. So let's get some clarity and find out why it's actually a really good investment. At least I think it is. Warm welcome to my two guests today. Roland Peens is no stranger to the show, the husband of the famous winemaker, and Hans Adstrom, who heads up Klein Constantia, currently from HQ in Switzerland. Guys, welcome. Lovely to see you both, and great to have you on the show in a really interesting and I think groundbreaking week for South African wine, because NFTs and fine wine certainly haven't come together in South Africa. I'm not sure if they have anywhere else in the world. Roland, give us a sense, first of all, before we talk about NFTs and wine coming together, what an NFT is, because there are many people scratching their heads and slightly puzzled as to what on earth you're doing here.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, it has taken me some time to get into this field of NFTs and to understand how to bring a wine NFT to the market. So let me try and be as simple as possible and go back to the first internet age, and that was in the 1990s. They called that web version 1. And if you fast forward to 2010, we entered the next age of smartphones, and that's labeled web 2. And we're now going through what they call Web 3, which is blockchain-enabled technology. And this technology is quite groundbreaking because it doesn't need intermediaries. It's a peer-to-peer trust-based system where computers in a network validate certain transactions. And this allows you to trade very quickly and across the world without paying too many fees. And this is the way we're able to transfer the ownership of a fine wine collection within a non-fungible token, which is a token that is on the ledger of the blockchain. Did that help, or did that make it worse, Dan?
I think it's nudged me in the right direction. Tell me if I've kind of got it then. What you're able to do is sell this extraordinary selection of wine, which we'll detail in a moment, and give each of these bottles, as well as the lot as a whole, what is effectively a piece of digital identification that cannot be tampered with, so that it either confirms the provenance of the wine if you're keeping it yourself, or if down the road you want to sell it, you want to move it on, you want to get rid of some of it, you've got something that completely authenticates it and confirms this is exactly what the person who's trying to sell this to me on Gumtree claims that it is.
Well, you've been researching it a lot, Dan, and really that's the point. We believe this is the most efficient way of selling a rare fine collection of wine. In South Africa, we traditionally haven't had a long culture of cellaring fine wines, so you don't find too many great wines from the 60s, 50s, and even the 70s and 80s. And here we're offering a collection of unique provenance, straight from the property, straight from the Klein Constantia cellar, where the wines might have never been moved. And these are the specific wines which will go onto the blockchain and sold as NFTs. Every single bottle is linked to the seal code of the bottle. Here I've got a bottle of Reinicke, which I'm drinking, and it's got a seal code on it. And that number actually goes onto the blockchain. So you're getting a specific bottle, and that provenance therefore makes it super rare.
It all sounds very above board. It sounds okay, this is about right. How difficult was it to put this together, not from collecting the wine, because I know that's just a few phone calls from a man like yourself, but the tech side of it, putting this together so that what you say you're going to do will actually happen? Yeah,
so good question. I've been on this for 18 months or so. it hasn't been easy to get together, and it really has been a collaboration from the likes of Klein Constantia, Meerlust, and all the producers in the auction. They've had to show interest. There was interest from Strauss's side, which is a very traditional auction house, and certainly isn't used to this type of technology. And then we had to find a partner that could mint, that could able to sell these NFTs, and that was quite difficult. We got offered many that were overseas based, and they were willing to take a handsome cut, but we ended up finding a fantastic partner in Stellenbosch called Fanfire, and it all seemed to work out after about 12 months of work, Dan.
All right, so it is now all online. It is ready to go. It features 5 estates. It features Kanonkop, it features Meerlust, it features Mullineux, it features Vilafonte, and it features Klein Constantia, which brings me to an old friend of mine in the wine industry I haven't seen in person for some time because he's been hiding out in Switzerland for the last little while. Hans, welcome to the show. Lovely to see you. Happy Easter, and how are you?
Thanks, Dan. All pretty good. Obviously, I'm as confused as some others about the EFTs and the NFTs and all that. But we're very pleased to have teamed up with Strauss on this little venture, which is obviously a first time for us as well.
Before we jump into it and how you guys play a part in Israel, tell me a little bit about Hans, about Klein Constantia, about your role there, and about where the estate sits at the moment, because it's been a fascinating last stretch for one of the most famous properties in Constantia.
That's a hard one. You know, the property has obviously been around for a long time. And I usually say that we just keep on chipping away. You know, we're preparing now for the next generation. You know, I mean, as we all know, it's one of the older wine estates of South Africa, and we have all intentions for it to remain for another 300 years. And it's a generational business. We've had some fantastic successes in the last years. There is a lot of interest for great wines of the world. Thankfully and finally, there is also more interest, say, around the world for great South African wines. So everything, I mean, despite the ups and downs of COVID, things are pretty good.
And they are changing, as you suggest. How important is it for an estate that's got so much history as you guys do, got such an entrenched name, to still be changing, to still be keeping up with the times, to take something as new and modern and slightly scary as an NFT and bring it in to the world of a wine estate that is so much about heritage and history?
Well, I mean, times are changing. You know, I'm one of the dinosaurs these days, but you know, and we got to sort of prepare for the next generation. And obviously, technology is, I mean, it ain't going to change. It's just going to develop and get better, and we're going to understand it more and so on. Whether it is about farming or whether it's what we're doing commercially or in terms of sales, and of course, I mean, most of us are quite acquainted with the auction world, whether we are buying cars or furniture or wine or whatever it is. And obviously now with the NFTs or the EFTs or whatever we're calling them, I mean, that is a new and a very safe way of putting something up for sale. And I find it actually quite, I mean, more than really interesting, actually. Very, very interesting way of going out to the market with something that is really exceptional.
Mute, Dan.
Well, this is a different world for us here in South Africa. Is it something you've seen happen in Europe? Have you seen fine wine and NFTs flicker across your horizon as yet?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some wine. I think it all started with art, and now we're starting to see a lot of collectibles, whether it's watches, cars, art. Wine is also a collectible, and I think it is an incredibly good way of actually selling something in a very secure way, because we know wine it's, to be perfectly frank, it's quite dodgy when you buy it on an auction site, because you actually don't know the authenticity or the provenance. And yes, people like to put guarantees up there, but I think there is a way of doing it this way. There's another level of trust that can go into what you actually are buying.
Which I think answers my next question in part, but I'll ask it nonetheless. When Roland and his team approached you to be part of this, was there much hesitancy? And what was it that finally sold it to you as, yep, we definitely want to be part of this?
Oh, first of all, it's the first in South Africa, and I mean, I have to congratulate Roland and his team and Strauss for taking it this far, and really go ahead with it. So I think that's something we like to be part of, innovation. Secondly, I mean, we are part of a group of very smart wineries, or the 5 wineries that are put up for auction are. I would like to own all the lots myself. So and I think that's a sign that we are in the right company. And lastly, or thirdly, is South Africa and South African top quality wines. We need to bang the drum a little bit more. We need to get out in the world, and there is a small clique in the world that knows about us and collects about us, but we need to make that clique a little bit bigger. And I think this is a new tool that we can utilize to actually reach channels and people and countries and so on that we might not do just by the normal everyday work that we do.
The people you do reach, the person or the people who buy this lot are in for something really special. So let's have a look at exactly what Klein Constantia have offered up. It goes back to 1986. It might take you through to 2027. It might take you through a year or two later if for a particular reason a vintage is skipped between now and then. But essentially, Hans, this is 40 years in varying quantities of arguably the world's most famous sweet wine.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, obviously the early years, 86, 7, 8, 9, I mean, they are extremely, very, very rare. I mean, if we have 24 bottles of the 86 in the cellar, I would be, I'm probably exaggerating. And the incredible story from the 80s when the Eustace family, I mean, in those days, the owners, they did it sort of as a secret project. The first vintage was 86. First time it was launched was in 1990. They had a couple of barrels, and they literally gave the first 2 barrels away, and that was their way of launching that iconic wine that disappeared for 100 years, sort of late 1880s to 1986. So the early vintages are amazing, and literally what we're selling 4 decades of history, and every vintage will obviously be different. Every vintage will have their own story. Yes, some wines will be better than the others, but the total collection will be 1, and it's not going to be 2, because this is the unique one. And I like the concept of selling the older vintages, but I actually think I prefer the concept of selling some of the future vintages. And it's definitely not something we can do every year or plan to do every year. So this one lot will be the one lot for probably quite a long time.
2 points of clarity. There's no 2003, no 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And then if for some reason, as I alluded to a little earlier, if for some reason you don't produce a vintage between now and 2027, you'll simply extend by a year or 2 years if required to make sure that it is 40 years of Van de Constance. That's correct?
Exact. That's correct. And obviously, I mean, we are pretty fortunate in being able to make a little bit of Van de Constance every year, but 203 and 210, we weren't that good. We didn't manage to get anything into the bottle. So those are the exceptions, and it's just a hedge for the buyer of the lot.
It's a lot. I have my eye on. You mentioned already you'd love to have all of the lots. I'm going to come back to you, Hans, and get your thoughts on those other four, because I know you know your South African wine particularly well. But let's head back to Roland. Roland, before I ask you another question about fine wine and NFT, I want to flash up a photo quickly. This is some Pinot Noir that I had from lunch today. That would be from a lady called Jessica Sarvine. You know her rather well, don't you?
Oh, thanks, Dan, for the nice punt. Yes, she's the manager of the house and of the farm, and she makes wonderful wine. Has done for 8 years now, 7-8 years. Grown every year her production to quite a nice, comfortable level. And this venture of ours allowed us to buy this farm where we currently are in Stanford. So the journey continues. And then hopefully one day we'll have some Pinot Noir and some Riesling from our little farm here in Stanford too.
It was delightful. At least I think it was. I only had half a glass. My mother got hold of the rest of the bottle and smashed the lot of it. She thought it was glorious. So please tell Jessica she has yet another fan. Speaking of fans, Grant Saul's watching at the moment over on YouTube. Looking forward to the Van de Constance lot. Grant, I think your home would make a very good home for that lot, in which case I would be moving in with you as quickly as possible. The other four lots come from four other equally esteemed estates. One of the points made, though, before we go on, Roland, by Hans there was about the provenance of auctions. I don't think there are any question marks over the Strauss auctions to date. You guys run a very tight ship, and the wine you produce is all authenticated beyond doubt. But it does raise a question with the value of the NFT as such a strong indicator of authenticity. Is this something that Strauss will be looking at employing going forward with the rest of your auctions?
Well, Dan, this is definitely a first, and I believe in the blockchain technology taking over the future. It's just too efficient compared to the traditional systems of transactions. So there's definitely a disruption that's going to happen at some point. Whether every single bottle will be an NFT or a token, I'm not so sure. And certainly there are other utilities for NFTs which we can't even think about at the moment, just like the internet has just changed our lives and smartphones have too. So then, yeah, there's lots of opportunity. And I think the art guys are also looking at it for authenticating famous artworks as well. But it is a good point to make. When you're buying a bottle of wine that's so old, if you get it from the property of origin, if the wine hasn't moved and it's been in those cellars, it really does carry a premium. You see this in the Bordeaux market, where Bordeaux stock carries a premium to marketplace stock. Although you do trust the system, here in South Africa, we don't have a big fine wine market. And yes, buying older wines can be quite risky, even though, as you say, we go through every degree to try and make sure that what's in the bottle is as what it says.
I had this plan, or I was going to buy lots of wine, drink 90% of it, and then send it back and claim it wasn't authentic. But I'm afraid I can't get that past because the checks and balances are all too good, as they are with this particular auction. Let's have a look at the first lot. That Klein Constantia lot is number 2. Lot number 1 goes back to 1980, when an Italian called Giorgio, 2 years into his stint at Meerlust, came up with something called the Meerlust Rubicon. 1980, we saw the first one. Now, this is a lot that starts, and I think it starts at 500,000 Rand. If you want to try and buy this, yes, 500,000 Rand. Now, that sounds like a daft amount of money until you work out that this is for 288 bottles of wine, the first 40 vintages of Meerlust Rubicon, taking through to 2034. There are 5 years that weren't, the Rubicon wasn't produced. They made the Meerlust Red instead. So 288 bottles, past and future. Initially sounds like a lot of money. I do those maths, and provided you've got that sort of money, this is almost a bit of a bargain, Roland.
Well, you said it, Dan, but just to correct you, it's 5 decades, not 4 decades. So you really are getting half a century of Meerlust Rubicon. And yeah, this is certainly not for the average wine collector. You are paying a lot of money for these wines, but there are only 3 bottles of the 1980 Meerlust Rubicon at Meerlust. So you're buying a third of their stock in this NFT. and therefore it makes those older bottles extremely rare. And it's just amazing how these old Meerlust wines tend to age so beautifully. We were drinking a 1994 last week, and it was as fresh as a 5-year-old wine. So you are buying something quite undiscovered. And another point to make is these wines were priced according to what they've been fetching on our auctions. That's how we've started the reserve pricing. So a lot of these Meerlust wines haven't been on the market ever before. We just haven't seen any older bottles. So you really, really are buying something unique. And the uniqueness of the NFT, the non-fungible token, and the uniqueness of the wine, the two marry so very well together.
And just to confirm, I know you mentioned the first bottles from the cellar. Every single bottle here is from Meerlust. It's all sourced directly from the producer.
That's right, Dan. Actually, we packed up the Tabernacle cellar the other day and came across 1978 Meerlust red blend, which was the Rubicon, the first vintage of Rubicon, but it was never released. That'll be on another auction, Dan, of course. But this one has the official start from 1980. There wasn't an 85. There wasn't a 2002. I think 89. There was missed as well at Meerlust. So they do skip a vintage kind of 1 in 10, and if the quality doesn't quite match what they're looking for. But yeah, a Grandia lot, very much like the Klein Constantia lot, you're buying the first part of history of two of iconic South African wines.
I can add a little bit of my own personal backing for 78s from Meerlust, not necessarily the Rubicon, but I've got a fair amount of 78 Cabernet Sauvignon, although I don't look anywhere near that old. That is the year of my birth. And I've probably opened a dozen bottles over the last 5 or 6 years. Every single one of them has been absolutely delightful and surprisingly youthful. So those older ones, I'd imagine, will be in very, very similar condition. Let's move on to lot number 3. The Klein Constantia one is, of course, lot number 2. Takes us to Paul Sauer. And I think from 2000 to 2018, it's a bottle apiece and then a case of each from 2018 through to 2025. So 70 odd bottles there. You're looking at about 150,000 Rand as an opening bid. And again, it's a wine, particularly over the last few years, with that 100 points from Tim Atkin not that long ago for the 2015 vintage. It really has embedded itself as one of South Africa's iconic red blends, Roland.
Yeah, Dan, what's interesting, since we've started this auction platform, the market price for Meerlust Rubicon, the Kanonkop Paul Sauer has really just flipped quickly to 2,000 Rand a bottle. So you can buy it on the, let's call it the release market, if you can get any, at 800, 850 Rand. And immediately it starts trading closer to the 2,000 Rand, showing you the demand for that wine, at least in South Africa. And I know the price is hefty offshore. So here you're getting all the modern day vintages of Kanonkop. They just didn't have the stocks of the older bottles to provide. They just don't have enough, and they offered a millennium vintage, which I think is nice. If you're a Kanonkop fan, this gives you supply for the next 10 odd years and a really smart connection, which I don't think very many people would beat.
And if you're looking at this as an investment, something I don't do, I buy wine to drink, and I'm hopeless at investing in wine. I think, oh, this will be great. I'll put my kids through university with this, and a week later it's drunk. And I've enjoyed it, but they're just not going to university. It leaves you with, in the case of the Paul Sauer, a wine that's it's pretty much blue chip stock, really, isn't it?
It is, Dan. I buy it every year, thinking that I might sell it, but I'm probably going to drink it. And it really is just one of those wines you have to buy every year if you're a serious wine collector. It ages over 10, 15 years. It increases in value. Sometimes it gets 100 points and really increases dramatically in value. And it's not out of place on any dinner table around the world.
All right, you'll see a rather hurried change of scenery. It started raining in Johannesburg. So if the load shedding wasn't enough, we've got a little bit of afternoon drizzle. It's not putting a dampener on the show because we've got really cool wine to talk about. And lot number 4 is very much amongst that. the Vilafonte, a case of each of the first 25 vintages of Series C. Again, a 500,000 opener. People are like, geez, Roland, what are you thinking? Then you go, hang on, 150 bottles of Vilafonte Series C. I know what it really cost. Hang on, this is actually not too bad at all.
Well, Dan, you keep on saying it. I mean, that's the reserve price. We're hoping it's going to get more. I mean, what's really important, I don't know if you saw the other day, but Jack Dorsey's tweet, which sold for $2.2 million 2 or 3 years ago, sold again on OpenSea for $280. So the market for these really hyped up NFTs really was a bubble, as a lot of people suggested. And that's really not what we're about. We're about taking assets and putting them onto the blockchain. So they're physical assets behind the NFT. And really, it needs to make sense from an investment and from a drinking perspective. But Mike's lot is incredible. I mean, Series C is that modern day icon where, again, you put it on the table. Doesn't matter the vintage. It's going to wow all your guests. It just seems to be perfect every single year. They got Winery of the Year at the IWSCC last year. And, they just can't seem to be making a foot wrong. And going back 25 years, it's the best collection of Vilafonte outside the cellar, basically.
It also comes with a dinner for, I think, 3 people with Mike Radcliffe. Does that add to the value or just take away from it ever so slightly?
You'll have to decide on that, Dan. And you don't have to come to the dinner when you buy it, so that's fine.
All right, I'd pay 250,000 rand just for dinner with Mike Radcliffe. Who wouldn't? Final lot is the Olorese from the Mullineux. This is another 100-point wine. I've got a little bit of it in my cellar, which I guard very jealously indeed. And I'm actually having a look now, and I see there is currently a bid in. You've got a second bid. It now sits at 220,000 rand. What are people paying 220,000 rand or possibly more for?
Well, they're paying for the Mullineux, the king and queen of the wine industry. They've risen to the top so quickly. They've won every award. They've done everything locally, internationally. Every wine they make just seems to be perfect. And this is their, let's not call it their flagship, but it's something very close to their heart. It's Shenan Blanc, and it's in a Solera type system, which has been going since 2008 when they started the project. And every now and again, they bottle a couple barrels and put it into an Olorese. And the second iteration, which was released in 2020, got 100 points. So they're only releasing a few barrels every year, and it's obviously in limited supply because of this Solera system. And you get 6 bottles of the first 20 iterations of the Olorese with this NFT. Again, it's a wine that you struggle to buy 2 or 3 bottles every year when it's released. So to get 6 upfront as an allocation, if you're a lover of this wine, it's a must.
All right, so it is a terrific selection. Certainly, eyes of Roland, I would agree with him. Let's go independent on the other 4 and jump back to Hans. Hans, you said you'd love all of them. I think all of us would. Let's start with that very first lot and go back to have a look at the Meerlust and that Rubicon. What for you makes this Meerlust Rubicon such an iconic wine, and why would you be chasing this lot?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's part of South African wine history. I think Rubicon is a wine it has an incredible track record. I mean, if you compare, Rubicon and Kanonkop, they are sort of, with their track records and their collectability, they are really wines that any serious collector would like to have at home. Then you have, it's wrong to call them the newcomers. Vilafonte is not a newcomer. Mike has been he's been around for quite a while, but it's a new generation of wine coming out of South Africa. So I think someone that really wants to have a piece of South African great wine history should definitely look at Meerlust.
There is also some great wine from Kanonkop, and that Paul Sour. And again, if you go back pre that 100 points, it was a wine that many people really enjoyed, and those in the know certainly got hold of as soon as they could. But one simple score, albeit a rather high one, has jettisoned into a new space, not an undeserved space, certainly, but it's taken it into, I think, a new brand almost in terms of how people understand and interpret it. And suddenly the value now has rocketed along with that new perception.
I love everything that Kanonkop is doing because they're so understated. They're just present, and you see them. They have quite a strong worldwide distribution. It's a great name, great brand, great wines, but they're very subtle about what they do, and some of these brands are really, they just ooze some kind of trust and sophistication, and Kanonkop is something that I really respect for everything they do.
As I'm sure you do the Mullineux, and they've got a space here which you'll watch very closely, because if you guys are the old school aristocrats of making sweet wine, then the Olores say a different style certainly, but the newer kids on the block, and arguably the two definitive sweet wines South Africa makes at the moment. What is your take on this Olores?
First of all, it's a wonderful wine. There is absolutely no doubt about that, and I think what they've done with it, and the reputation that is earned in only a few vintages, I think that is fantastic, and it's good for the whole category, and not to sort of say too much, but I do think that if there are two, or maybe there is another one sort of a little bit behind us, but whoever, but if there are the two leading sweet wines of the South African wine world, yes. Are we possibly some of the leading sweet wines of the world? Definitely. And I think, everyone looks at Sauternes or Barsac or Tokai when they're looking for great wines with sweetness, or Germany or Loire. But South Africa on the map is definitely being stronger and stronger. So Mullineux they've been helpful to us, and and they've been helpful for some of the great other sweet wines that we might not know so well to also pop up out of South Africa.
It's no real challenge selling the Van de Constance. It sells out so quickly because of its history in part, but mostly just because it's bloody nice wine. I would presume your greater challenge at the moment going forward, Hans, is trying to convince your winemaker Matt Day not to make more than 100 different types of Sauvignon Blanc, and then to guide the estate through its next stage.
Yeah, we are privileged. Van de Constance has an amazing history. We have to fight every day to sell it, though. It's not as easy as it might sound, but obviously we are incredibly fortunate. For the dry wines, we are, as we are focusing a lot on sort of finding and defining our territory in Constantia, which we believe very strongly to be fantastic for Sauvignon Blanc. So we have this new program of isolating specific vineyards, and we've been doing it now for 10 years, 12 years. So it's not something that happened just the other night. And then of course, as you know, we have a small little red wine property out of Stellenbosch called Anvilkas, and that gives us plenty of work for every day of the week.
Keeping nice and busy. How long till we see you back in South Africa, Hans?
Well, I just flew out of South Africa, so I've been there now during harvest in February and March. And next time, I will be back. It will be nice and cold and wet and windy, and it will be in July.
She'll make a point of getting down to see you there. Before we wrap up, which I'm going to have to do shortly because the sun is dipping over the Johannesburg horizon. It's still drizzling ever so lightly, and I have no electricity, not for the first time over the last few weeks. A couple of things to wrap up, if you will, Roland. First of all, I believe there is a charity element.
Yeah, what's great about these NFTs is you can design them or write them any which way you want, and you can accrue certain percentages to charities, to certain individuals, to platforms, and it really is an efficient way of doing it. So it's all there, it's all transparent to see. And then, we're offering quite a few of the lots with a portion going to Spiel, which is a charity that's very close to me. They address childhood trauma in the winelands, and we need a lot of that for sure, and they certainly need the funding. And I've seen the impact of this trauma-based therapy, this arts-based therapy. And then one last point to make, Dan, and Hans was touching on it throughout what he was saying, is the collaboration between the top producers in South Africa. It's quite unique. If we were to do this in another country, I think we'd struggle to get the participation and the ability for each winery to market and talk about each other with so much passion and energy. And we really do sell each other's wines, and we sell wines of South Africa, and that's what we need. So that's another great spin-off of the auction.
Finally, people do want to get involved. Think, right, let's break the bank and spend some money on something rather unique and very, very special. When does the auction run until, and how do they get involved?
Pretty much exactly a week's time it will be closing. So we're hoping that the lots start ticking over nicely now. People know about it, and I think that last day is going to be quite hectic with bidding. But it's online, straussart.co.za. You register, and then you're going. But you know how to do that, Dan. So we'll talk to everyone else.
Yes, I've cancelled my internet contract until next Tuesday, just to be sure I don't fall victim to another one of these auctions. It looks terrific. It's really dynamic. It's very exciting, and the fact that it is future as well as past vintages brings a kind of a novel entrepreneur feel to what you are doing. So best of luck with it, Roland. Not that you need it, I suspect. Hans, I can see Van der Constance getting plenty of excitement and much furious bidding come the end of Monday. So good luck with the rest of the week. Well done on a really cool, really exciting new initiative. Have fun watching it unfold. And I look forward to next Thursday's show, letting everybody know just how well the 5 lots are done, quite possibly headlined by a record price for the guys at Klein Constantia.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Hans.
So there we go. Hans Astrom out of Switzerland from Klein Constantia. Roland Peens from a cave somewhere in Stanford, representing Strauss-Art, ahead of the first fine wine and NFT auction. Go and have a look, even if you're not going to bid. It's a really interesting space, as Kanonkop and Klein Constantia and Meerlust and Mullineux and Vilafonte all come together. Big prices, certainly, but a huge amount of wine. A lot of it very rare indeed, and all of it backed by the NFT blockchain technology, which I think Roland has pretty much explained over the course of today. So go and, if not get bidding, certainly have a look and join us back again on the show on Thursday. It is the Swartland Social. That's 2 A's, which is happening in a couple of weeks' time. And if you would like to find out more about it, then join me on the show. Chris Mullineux will be part of the show. We will also be joined by Martin Lamprecht, and we'll drop in on the Anthony Rupert team as well. Will be joining us on Thursday as we sample some wine and find out what will be happening at the Social Wijnfeest. And we'll also be joined by the founder there as well, of what promises to be a really cool and exciting. That's Karin Hugo Waring, and I think it'll be Vernon van der Hoeven who'll be joining us as well from the team at Anthony Rupert. So that wraps us up for the week. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go and light some candles and put my children on a bicycle attached to a car battery to see out my Monday evening. Hope you had a great Easter. Thanks for joining us on Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. And we play out with a reminder. End of the month, our competition comes to an end with Bellingham. Your chance to go fine dining in Franschhoek at Darren Badenhorst Le Coin Francais with some vintage Bellingham. Here's what's on offer. Here's how to enter. We'll see you on Thursday. Goodbye. This month's competition is brought to you by Bellingham, and it's the chance to head out to Le Coin Francais. That's in the heart of Franschhoek. 4 people, a 5-course tasting menu prepared by Chef Darren Badenhorst, paired with vintage Bellingham wine. Superb food from an absolutely outstanding chef and some really good vintage Bellingham wine. And that is all yours. Simply tell us why on our social media channels. You should be the winner of this particular prize. Let us know. And 4 of you could be spending an evening at Le Coin Francais, dining fabulously and drinking wonderful wine. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.